ASML's EUV machine is the most famous tool in chipmaking, but it cannot process a single wafer on its own. Bolted to every one of them is a second machine from a company most people can't even name, Tokyo Electron, and its grip on that job is effectively total. Before a scanner can print anything, the wafer needs a coat of photoresist, a light-sensitive film just nanometers thick, and after exposure, that film must be developed, washing the pattern into existence. The machine that does both is called a coater developer, the track. By Tokyo Electron's own numbers, its tracks hold about 90% of that market worldwide. For EUV, the most advanced lithography on Earth, its share is reported to be 100%, a $5 billion a year job. Every EUV line at TSMC, Samsung, and Intel runs through these machines. Coat, expose, develop, a three-step dance, and ASML only dances the middle step. So why can nobody else cut in? If you work in semiconductors or invest in them, subscribe. This channel maps who actually captures AI's value. Start with what a track actually does. Spinning liquid resist onto a wafer sounds simple until the film has to be uniform to within nanometers across a 12-inch wafer thousands of times a day. Spin speed, temperature, humidity, solvent evaporation, everything runs under closed-loop control. The wafer then bakes on a hot plate, spins through more chemistry, and bakes again. A dozen precision steps wrapped around the scanner's one. EUV raises the bar again. EUV light is scarce, so every photon counts. The films get thinner, the chemistry less forgiving, and tiny variations surface as dead transistors. Even the bake after exposure must stay uniform to fractions of a degree, or the pattern itself drifts. Then comes the choreography. The track is physically docked to the scanner, one machine feeding the other. A modern EUV scanner pushes well over 100 wafers an hour, and the track must match that rhythm exactly. Coat, handover, receive, develop, with zero contamination at the handoff, and every resist formulation, from JSR, TOK, Shin-Etsu, is qualified on the track's process, recipe by recipe. Swap the track, and the whole line requalifies. This is not painting, it is nanometer choreography at industrial speed. So how did one company come to own it? Here is the improbable part. Tokyo Electron started in 1963 as a trading company, two young founders backed by a broadcaster, importing American chip-making equipment and exporting Japanese car radios. It learned the machines by selling them. Then it started building better ones. Today, it is Japan's largest semiconductor equipment maker, with record revenue last year of around $16 billion, and commanding positions across the fab, about 90% in coater developers, nearly 40% in wafer probers, roughly a quarter of deposition and etch. But the track is the crown jewel, and the moat is not really the hardware. It is decades of process recipes, co-developed with the resist makers wafer by wafer, plus the docking qualification with every scanner ASML ships. A challenger would need the machine, the chemistry library, and permission to bolt onto a $200 million scanner, all at once. Screen, the distant second, fights mostly for older layers. For EUV, there has been exactly one choice, and demand is compounding. The company is guiding coater developer revenue up roughly 50% this fiscal year, riding the AI build-out. The quiet trading company became a toll booth, but every toll booth eventually invites a bypass. The bypass has a name, dry resist. Lam Research wants to replace the liquid film entirely, deposit the resist from vapor, develop it without solvent, skip the spin. Lam claims roughly half the cost and power per step. A leading memory maker has already put it into EUV production, and IBM is pushing it toward high NA. If dry resist spreads to the most advanced layers, litho's other half stops being automatic. Tokyo Electron is not standing still. It is qualifying the new metal oxide chemistries on its own tracks, spending a record $2 billion a year on research and development, and building a development hub right next to TSMC's fab in Kumamoto. There are slower risks too, Chinese toolmakers building tracks for older fabs, and an equipment cycle that never sleeps. China was nearly half of revenue 2 years ago. Today it is about a quarter. But watch one number above all: how far dry resist spreads beyond memory. That is the moment the dance partner question reopens. Step back, and the shape is simple. Everyone knows the famous machine, the one that draws the pattern. Almost no one knows the one bolted to it, the machine every wafer visits twice on every single layer. ASML built the star of modern chipmaking. Tokyo Electron built its dance partner. And for the other half of lithography, the world still has exactly one. How an eyeglass company ended up behind every EUV mask. That story is on screen now.